Yes, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to talk the LOA, especially for
Yes.
business. I think it's a good teaching. If you have a good grasp on it, it'll make things a lot easier, I think, for sure.
Yeah, I love that. LOAs. It almost sounds like a dance that we could do. Let's do LOA.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
It
let's
almost,
LOA
yeah,
for
yeah,
business, baby.
yeah, yeah.
I know, it's good. I like
Alrighty,
to
alrighty.
do the LOA. That's a very good way to look at it.
Yes, yeah, we're gonna do a dance and name it that. Yeah, and trademark and everything.
Exactly.
All right. So, Kelly, without any further ado, right? I want you to kind of tell us exactly what is the law of attraction. Just take us through how you intend to guide us through this conversation that we're going to be having, and what exactly is the law of attraction.
Okay, well, to me, the law of attraction is the idea that our inner world, our thoughts, our beliefs, our perspectives, our feelings, what we're focusing on primarily in the realm of our mind, that's the level of cause. And everything we see in our physical reality is the level of effect. So what's showing up in our life, our financial situation, the state of our health, the type of people we attract into our life, the nature of our relationships, the sorts of opportunities that come or don't come, oftentimes, is a result of what's happening in that inner world. So by understanding this and being more conscious of how we're focusing, what we believe, how we're responding to the situations in our lives, the meaning we're assigning to everything, by being more conscious and deliberate in that, you're able to influence your physical reality in a way that's more to your liking. So the law of attraction is a universal law that's always been operating in your life. It's just that most of us, we're not aware that's what's happening, and we're not conscious of what's happening in our energy. So because we're not conscious, we tend to have a lot of stuff happening that we don't like so much. The stuff we want to happen doesn't seem to be happening. And we're not aware that we're the ones influencing this, what's happening or not happening, but not in a way that it's your fault. It's just that, like I said, we're not conscious of our energy. And once we understand a teaching like this and we become conscious and we become deliberate with our focus, then we can influence our reality in a way that's more to our liking. So it's a universal law that's always been operating, not a tool to manipulate your reality, which I think is what a lot of people interpret it to mean. And that's going to get you off onto the wrong foot, manifesting wise, pretty quickly.
All right, you said three words, Kelly. Awareness, consciousness, and energy.
Yes.
Right. So for or newbie who are listening to us, they're watching us, and they're saying to themselves, this is the first time I'm hearing that I care. How can I be more aware, more conscious, and what is this energy that you're talking about?
Okay. So when I talk about energy, there's the idea that everything at its core is just atoms or like a frequency. It's a non-physical. This is like I don't know too much about how people describe it in that way. I don't follow that too closely. But so there's this idea that, our thoughts, our feelings, there's an energy to them. There's a frequency, a vibration. And what we're putting out there in the form of what's dominant. So our thoughts, our feelings, our belief, all of that internal stuff, there's some invisible energy that's at the core of all of that. And based on what that energy is, that's going to determine you're going to attract things that match that energy. So if you're thinking more positive thoughts, they're higher frequency, they're higher energy, you'll attract things that are more reflect that energy back to you. And so when I say energy, just think of, to me, it's like, just think of what your thoughts, your feeling, what's happening in your inner world. That's your energy, like that invisible part of you, like what's going on there. Like, what are you thinking? How are you feeling? What are your belief systems and all of that stuff? And then as far as becoming more conscious and aware, that's actually not so hard. We kind of overcomplicate stuff like that, I think. And it sounds very esoteric and, you know, like it's hard and how do I do that? But basically it's just taking the time to think a little bit about, what am I thinking? How am I feeling? What do I believe? What are my beliefs when I look at the things that are happening in my life? How do I feel about that? Like, what is that? What is these experiences reflecting back to me? And so, yeah, it really just takes that conscious effort to sit for a moment and be like, how am I feeling? And that's something that over time you get better at, because most of us, we operate on autopilot. Our beliefs, our feelings, it's so deeply ingrained, we don't even notice anymore how we're focusing, how we're feeling, because we're so accustomed to it. And we go through our day and we're so engaged in our day-to-day activities and we're so busy and we're so distracted that, again, all of this stuff is running in the background, but we're just not conscious of it. But it's there. And when you start learning about it like this, or you become more interested in like awareness and consciousness and all of these sorts of things, it's just a matter of, oh, I just have to take a moment to deliberately like sit and evaluate what's happening in my life, what's going on. And as you keep making that choice over and over again, you start naturally becoming more aware of your inner world, and you're just seeing, like, you're seeing correlations between your belief system and what manifests. You get a better sense of why you respond to situations in your life the way you do. It's like, oh yeah, I responded that way because when that person does that, that makes me feel this way, or it makes me think this thing. And that, oh, okay. So you just, it's something over time, you just get more, it's easier to do it because you're just more naturally tuned into your inner world. And it's just a matter of just sitting there and thinking more consciously about it. And people can do that through meditation. You might find different tools and techniques to help you do it, to facilitate it. But that's really what it comes down to, is just taking that time to deliberately think about what's going on. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What's happening?
All right, so I subscribe to the belief, Kelli, that we are actually spirit beings that are housed in physical bodies.
Yeah.
And based on what and based on what you've been saying, now, you know, clearly, you know, you're also the law of attraction is along the vein as well. Now, as a man thinketh in his heart, so easy, right? And you also mentioned a while ago about, you know, your what is it that you subscribe to, your belief system, right? Mm-hmm. So many of us are inhibited by the negative thoughts that permeates us every single day. Now, how can we avoid, if you will, those limiting beliefs?
Well, I think the first thing, and this is really important too, if you're interested in teaching like the law of attraction specifically and not just general positive thinking, you know, because you read about the law of attraction and it's like, okay, your beliefs create your reality. And like you say, as a man thinketh, and all of that stuff, and all of that's true. And then what starts to happen almost immediately is this strong pressure to totally eliminate beliefs that you may have been carrying around since you were a kid, for decades, your entire life. And what happens is, if your beliefs come first and then your reality, then you're going to manifest all sorts of stuff that to your mind validates these beliefs. So not only have you been carrying around these beliefs for your whole life, you've manifested so much evidence that they're true, because our mind doesn't understand that the energy came first and then the belief. So even if you intellectually understand that, or it makes sense to you, or intuitively you feel like there's something to this, you probably just won't be able to eliminate these beliefs overnight. And that's what I think people feel pressure to do. It's like, if you spent your whole life in poverty and thinking that you're poor and you can't do anything about your poverty, everyone in your family's always been poor, everyone in this region is poor, or whatever it is, for example, all of a sudden, even if you intellectually understand that developing an energy of abundance is going to turn your life around, you probably won't be able to flip a switch like that. Anyone that could do that would have already done it. No one would mire themselves in bad feeling beliefs if they could just be like, oh, I'll just be happy instead, or, oh, I'll just believe this instead. So I think the first step is at least a willingness to concede, okay, if my beliefs are what create my reality, and if I change my beliefs, I'll change my reality. Okay, I might not be able to change these beliefs overnight. I might have a lot of evidence and I still kind of think these things might be true. I'm willing to concede that maybe my beliefs are not set in stone. My beliefs are not fact. They're not some irrefutable law. And that willingness is really powerful because that's all you can really do anyway. All you can do is start with the willingness to believe. Maybe after being an employee all my life, maybe I can start my own business. Maybe even if I failed in other businesses I've tried, that doesn't matter. And I can succeed in this one. So whatever the belief is, right? I'm willing to think maybe that's not true. And then with that willingness, energetically, something opens up. And what happens is you make a space for manifestations to come in, for things to happen to you that actually show you maybe that belief is true. Maybe this other thing I believe isn't true. Now, it might not be some big sexy manifestation that blows your mind. It might be a smaller thing that happens, but it's enough to let you start actually genuinely questioning your current belief system. And as you start doing that, the manifestations come in, and our mind likes the evidence. Our mind likes the proof. And as it starts getting that, and it has this evidence that maybe this belief is not true, and maybe this more empowering, better feeling belief is true. Oh, okay. I'm starting to see proof of that. And then as you let those manifestations come in to help you make these shifts, you more easily let go of the beliefs because you're actually getting evidence now that maybe they're not true. And you're not just taking it on theory or trying to believe it because it sounds good or thinking, well, you need to believe this to get what you want according to the law of attraction. So it's a process, and
all right,
it's gradual, but it doesn't mean it has to take a long time.
All right, so let's now segue into our actual topic, which is the law of attraction as a success strategy. Talk to us, like, for persons who are, or attendees who are just considering entrepreneurship, or just at the very startup phase, and their feelings of insecurity. Can I really do this? Of course, the law of attraction is not a tool to manipulate reality, but because we are approaching the end of our session, take us through how it is that you're not just young in age chronologically, but young in just starting a business.
Yes.
Take us through that to use the law of attraction.
Well, I think the first thing, especially because, right, if you're been an employee all your life, or maybe you've been a stay-at-home mom and you haven't worked in a long time, or maybe you've never had an actual, whatever your situation is, moving to working to your own business, it's a whole different ballgame. It's a very different mindset than an employee or whatever. So I think one of the first things that people need to do is, if you understand that your reality, obviously you have to believe this to start with. And I imagine if someone's watching this, they at least believe this to some degree. If you do believe that your energy, your inner world is the true level of cause, and everything else is a manifestation of that, including the actions you take, you realize that the most important place to start isn't all the actions you're going to take to build your business. And of course, you're going to do all sorts of things. You're going to make a website, you'll do social media, you'll make a blog post, make up whatever it is, you're going to do things. But you want to start, especially if you're just starting out, the most important thing you could do is tend to your inner world. So when you think about starting a business, what are the fears? What are you afraid of? Do you have any conflicting energies about starting the business? Like, for example, a lot of times what we consciously want is very different from what we subconsciously want, because subconsciously we might have negative associations with things that we consciously want, or that our mind consciously thinks would be a good thing. So for example, if you are, and these things could be weird things, so don't discount something because it sounds weird. You might worry if you come from a blue collar, hey, we don't have a lot of money, but at least we're honest kind of mentality family. You know, you might think to yourself, oh, if I become this successful entrepreneur, like, what is my family going to think about me? Are they going to look at me like they look at these other successful people that have money? Or what if I get too successful and I get too busy? Like, so it's like, start thinking, you know, yeah, like, and like I said before, yeah, all the practical logistical stuff, yeah, you're going to give thought to that, but all of that's secondary to this inner world stuff. So that's the first thing you want to do, is think about, what are my fears? What are my limiting beliefs around this? Do I have any conflicting energies? And when I said with the conflicting energies and all of that stuff, a lot of this stuff consciously might seem really weird. It might not make sense. Like I said before, worrying your family won't like you, or worrying that having a lot of money might actually be a bad thing in some way. Because our mind is like, well, no, that, of course I want to be rich and I don't care what people think. But it's like, but there's a part of us that is kind of screwy and thinks these things are problems. So that's where you really want to start, is like internally, what's happening with me right now? What am I afraid of? What limiting beliefs do I have around starting this business? Is it because I didn't go to college, or because I don't have experience, or because of this thing, or whatever it is? Do I have any fears around actually being successful? And if you start there and start weeding through all of that stuff, energetically, you'll be starting from a much cleaner space, and you'll actually get off on the right foot with your business much more quickly. So I would say that's the first thing, is like, the inner world. Don't worry about the other stuff. That'll all fall into place. Start there and you'll be off on a much better foot.
You touched a very critical point, Kelly, because many of us would have grown up and in the Caribbean, for example, with not the wealthiest of backgrounds, yeah? Mm-hmm. And we would have heard in our households, or grandparents or guardians or parents almost cursing rich people as if to be rich yeah. was bad news. Like, yeah, so
it is. Money is a funny thing. And another thing too, I would say, with an energy thing from money, because when you learn about a teaching like the law of attraction, especially when it comes to business, which is a very action oriented part of our lives, where, money's involved, it's going to challenge, this way of looking at things is going to challenge a lot of traditional thinking about business and success and money. And that's just, you have to wade through that piece by piece. Stuff is always going to come up. It's not one thing in a weekend you're going to figure it all out and be like, oh, I have this whole new belief system around money and action. And it's a process. And I think too, one of the big things from an energetic perspective that's really helpful for people is, especially with business, because we're talking about money, you don't deserve for what you do. You deserve because you are. Your sheer existence here makes you deserving of everything that we can acquire as humans in this life. Money is not an exception. And with business especially, I think we have this idea of, you only deserve money and success if you work really hard. Then you deserve it. You put in your dues, you put in your time, you toil, you suffer, you strive, you succeed, and then you deserve it because you put in that effort. Then you deserve the money. And that's not true. And when we think about working from energy, when you're aligned with money, when you're aligned with success, when you're aligned with whatever it is you want from your business energetically, you don't have to work hard. It doesn't mean that you don't work or take effort. A business is, by nature, it's an action-oriented thing. You're going to do things. But when you realize that success can be easy, earning money can be easy, I think too, that can take away a lot of fear with people starting their own business. Because if you have this idea that you got to work so hard and it's going to be hard and you got to suffer and really earn that money and earn that success, most people are going to be like, I don't know if I have that in me. And you don't need to have that in you, because you don't need to do that. Yeah, you'll have times where there'll be challenges and you might not succeed right away and you'll hit various obstacles, but you can choose to look at them in a different way, in a way that doesn't bother you so much, and realize, like, success, money, it can be easy. You deserve it. It's your natural right to have it. And when you align energetically, it's just all the things you think you need to do for business, this vision you might have of building a business and what it's like, it's actually very different, and it's not as scary as we probably think it is. And know that you deserve because you are. And when you realize that you deserve because you are and not for what you do, you'll run your business in a completely different way. You won't be bogged down by all these limiting beliefs of like, well, who am I to earn money doing what I love and doing something that comes so easily to me? I'm not working hard enough, so I must not deserve my success. I must not deserve the money. And it's like, no, none of that's true. So I would say too, that's another energetic thing to really think about. And the sooner you start dealing with that issue, the better off you'll be, for sure. Because that's something that plagues a lot of people, I think.
Wow, you don't deserve because of what you do, but because you are. Just being here as part of this earth, as part of this creation.
Yeah.
Interesting. You know, Kelly, we did an interview. Let me just tell her, our attendees here, our community for our podcast, The Entrepreneurial You, which hasn't aired yet, by the way, will air in October. And you said something from that interview, which it has stuck with me. And it says that the universe is our best business partner. So absolutely. As we, again, we are approaching the end of our session, and I'll close on that and the main takeaways that you want our community to leave with as we talk about the law of attraction as a success strategy.
Yeah. The universe, you couldn't ask for a better business partner. And this is another thing too, I think, to think of when you think about the law of attraction. It's not asking for stuff and then the universe just giving it to you and you don't like participate in your own life in any way. Now, there is power in that asking, because energetically, when you ask for things, when you set intentions for certain things to manifest, you put the wheels in motion in that invisible realm, if you will. But I like to think of it as, look at the universe as a partner. It's a co-creation. So you have to hold up your end of the bargain with your energy, managing your energy, following your intuition, taking the inspired actions. So you're participating in the process. But unlike before, when you thought that you were all alone in doing it and it's all up to you to make everything happen and it's all comes down to the actions you take, which this is something I want to throw in real quick. If you can remember this, this is very helpful. Actions are not separate from your energy. Actions are a manifestation of your energy, just like anything else in your physical reality. You're acting from some sort of energetic motivation, a fear, a belief, an intuitive nudge, some sort of outcome. You're not doing what you're doing for no reason. So just keep that in mind when you're taking your actions for your business. Am I doing this from a space of alignment? It feels right, light, fun, and easy. I think it would just be a good idea. I would like to do this. Or am I trying to force, control, and manipulate an outcome, or trying to force something to happen and this action? Because then it's like when you're doing that, you're already out of alignment. So it's like, do your best to always pay attention to the motivations behind your actions. But I just wanted to throw that in there. So that was like really important, especially for business, because again, it's such an action oriented part of our lives. But yeah, so when you realize that you have this, you're not alone in this, like you just, that's, you know, the inspiration comes. That's when those amazing coincidences happen. You get, you know, you meet up with somebody and they refer, like you go to a coffee shop and you tell someone about your business and they refer 10 new clients to you. And you're like, whoa, I didn't have to do anything to make that happen. All I did was have this conversation with a stranger in a coffee shop. And because I know in my own life, anytime I saw significant shifts in my business that were lasting and were like, you know, keep moving along, keep moving forward, it was never, ever, ever tied to doing more action or taking more action or taking different actions. There was always that energetic shift within me. And with that energetic shift, I opened myself up to these opportunities, these clients, these whatever the thing was happening that I was like, oh, this is good for my business. And that's the universe kind of hooking us up. But like I said, again, it's important to remember this isn't about the universe just giving you stuff because you want it. It can only give us stuff that we're vibrationally a match to. So that's where our responsibility comes in this co-creation. We have to have the energy that allows these things to come. We have to have the energy that allows the universe to help us. It can only help us if we let it. And if we're not trusting, if we're trying to force and control things, we're getting attached to specific opportunities and specific people and all these things, then we're cutting off that conduit. So it's like the universe can hook you up, but you need to have the energy your energy game has to be tight on your end, I always like to say. And that's when the magic really happens.
Yeah. I noticed, Kelly, because I noticed, like, you're right, you know, when it is I'm pushing so hard, you know, it's like the universe, if you will, God, if you will, right back and say, slow down, hold up. And the more I press forward, it's like the more resistance that I feel, because it's not, you know, the kind of energy that I'm giving off.
Exactly.
It's not conducive to embracing what is in store for me.
Yeah, because when we're trying to force and control and make things happen through action, energetically something's off there, because you wouldn't do that if you felt good and you felt trusting, you felt aligned, and you were doing stuff that felt good to you. You wouldn't feel all of that like, yeah. So it's like you're pushing against an energy that, and people do it all the time, and you might get results from doing that. You know, you take enough action, eventually something might happen, but it doesn't have to be that hard. It doesn't have to be so painful. It's like you can actually act from inspiration. And this is kind of where, when I was talking about before, where, like, you know, really acting from this space will challenge a lot of traditional business advice. And not to say you just chuck all of it. A lot of it's going to be useful and have a place in building your business. But for example, you know, if we create based on energy and there's infinite abundance and enough for everybody, all the advice about scoping out your competitors, what are your competitors doing, getting a leg up on your competitors, it's like energetically competition, it's not real. Like, it doesn't matter. There's enough for everybody. I don't care what other coaches are doing. I don't care. I follow other LOA coaches, not because I'm trying to see what they're doing, but because I am interested in that topic. And I'm like, oh, what do you have to say about this topic? And I like reading about it, but I'm not like, well, what are they doing for marketing? And I got to make this. It's like, I don't care. It doesn't matter. There's enough for everybody. So that's just an example of, like, you know, when you do this, you don't be afraid to challenge, you know, this traditional wisdom. If it's coming from a space of hard work and forcing and competition and scarcity and fear, and, you know, you don't need to worry about competition. You don't need to write emotionally manipulative sales copy to get people to buy your products and services. You start to realize, like, if you're working from the space of energy, a lot of things that are told to you that that's important for business success, you start to realize, actually, it might not be. And you might feel, you know, if you keep that in mind, you'll feel more comfortable disregarding advice that energetically doesn't feel right to you. You'll feel more comfortable following your intuition and only following business advice that resonates with you on an energetic, emotional level, and disregarding what doesn't. And this is a process. You know, this is not something you're going to perfect a week after you start your business. It's just, you know, these are things to keep in mind as you're moving along. And, you know, doing all this is a process. So for people, like, don't feel pressure to try to operate from this space immediately without a shred of doubt. You know, you're going against the grain in a lot of ways with this way of thinking. It's kind of radical in some respects. And, you know, this is stuff you adopt over time and in ways that works for you.
You know, we could go on and on and on. And you touched on something again, which is, it struck a chord with me, Kelly, and it's that abundance thinking, because this whole competition, you know, it's, as you said, scouting out your competition and so on. It's really coming from a place of believing that there's not enough for everybody.
Exactly. And scarcity
when you come from a place of abundance.
Yeah, it is. You know, no matter what you're selling, a product, a service, like, especially as a coach, there's more than enough clients to go around. And as a coach, how many people are you going to work with anyway? You're not going to have like 500 clients a month, you know? So it's like most people, especially if you have a higher end coaching service or you work, you know what I mean? Like, that's just an example, like different kinds of businesses, like a consultant, those sort of things, when you're like trading time for money, like, how many people would you possibly be working with at a time anyway? So there's definitely enough to go around. Like, yeah, you can get 5-6 people a month to be your coaching client. It's like, there's millions of people interested. That's just an example. But yeah, it's, you know, that scarcity vibe, that is so pervasive, and that affects our money, our business, relationships, thinking there's not enough people to go around, I'm going to be single forever, like so many things. And yeah, it's one of those beliefs that you start seeing when you start examining your inner world more closely. You're going to find you have lots of different limiting beliefs. Don't let that freak you out, because when you start paring them down to the most surface level, you're going to see there's only about 3 or 4 core issues that are actually the problem. Usually scarcity, not enough to go around, worthiness and deserving, not feeling good. You know what I mean? Like, so you're going to find like, oh, I don't have like 50 issues. I really only have 3 or 4. And that's much more manageable, because they're all going to boil down to a more common, broader kind of energetic issue.
Refreshing. Wouldn't you say, my peak performers? Kelli, it's time for us to end our conversation, unfortunately, yes. Because listening to you, having this dialogue with you, is really, really refreshing.
No, well, I hope I gave people a good foundation for, basically, you're always after a feeling. Think about how you want your business to feel. Think about what's the energetic demographic of your ideal clients and customers. It always focus on the energy of all of that first. And then from there, the clarity comes, the inspiration comes, all of that. It'll make things a lot easier. And you just, if you believe really that's the core of your creation, that there's no exception. Business is not different. Money is not different. It's just start with the inner world there, see what's happening there. Think about how and like I said, everything you want a feeling. Your business, you think it'll give you certain feelings. How do you want your business to feel? How do you want to feel when you're working? When you start getting the clarity on all of that, everything comes into place, falls into place much more quickly.
Amazing. So we end it here. Thank you so much, Kelli. You've been awesome as always.
A great conversation. Thank you. I had a good time.